Hey, we welcome you to another episode of Learning Stories. This is a show where we profile a diverse set of learners from the 21st century. In each episode of this show, we interview a guest who has a story to share about how they acquired a set of unique skills in a creative and innovative manner. In the process, we hope to uncover a new definition of learning as conceptualized, narrated, and imagined by the guest in our show. Today's guest, Grachel Monis, is again someone I've known for a really long time. And just to give you a little background about her experience, now, one thing I've always admired about Grachel is the fact that she's such a voracious reader. She reads across all genres. And I think if there's a book that needs to be read, Grachel has probably read it. She currently works as an IB business management and IGCSE global perspectives teacher. In addition to being a voracious reader and a teacher, she's also a full time wife and boy mom to a wonderful, a beautiful boy who we will learn about more in this talk. But she's been wonderfully managing all these roles and understanding and I think doing exceptionally well in each of these roles in her own capacity. There are a lot of other things that Grachel is passionate about. She's an anime watcher, a closet writer, an amateur poet and artist. She's also a Toastmaster with multiple ribbons and certificates as a public speaker. Previously, she was a volunteer at the Women's Crisis Line at Shamsaha, an ex-language facilitator, and she's also had a previous innings or a previous experience in the corporate world, with some experience in department coordination, business development, marketing, copywriting, PR, and social media. Before she started her work life, she got a degree, a Bachelor in Commerce degree, with a major in accounting and management. And she grew up in the Middle East. We went to the same school, and so we have that in common. And it's safe to say that with or without volition, it's been a fun ride for Grachel, and she is excited to tell us more about what's coming ahead. And yeah, Grachel, I'm sorry that was such a wonderful, diverse introduction, but just to get started, Grachel, in this show, we try to understand what are the things or what are the experiences that made you who you are today. So what was Grachel like growing up? How did that habit of reading develop early on for you?
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Okay. And, just please excuse my sniffles. I have an AC allergy and, it's summer now here. So that we back to using AC. And then I've been just like, trying to get a handle over it. But yeah, like, where do I start? Right. Like, with all these years that we've lived on this planet, it feels like most of what happened, even like before today, seems like a dream. Right. So, when you asked about reading, the first memory that crosses my mind is the second, no, it was the third school of my life. So the school we went to together, it was my fourth school overall, right? And the school that I was enrolled in India, in Bombay, that's the first memory that comes to mind, that really brought forward the love for reading. Before that, I would just see the collection of books that my parents had kept in our native place. So both of them read a lot, so I feel like I'm the combination of both my parents, so I read more than even probably they did. I mean, that's what they say. Even my dad says, you the reading habit that you took from us, it has created craters in their pockets apparently, and also now craters in my pocket. So yeah, like the school that I went to in India, they used to have this thing where if you rank right in first, second, or third in any subject or overall grade, they would give you books. So if you get the third rank, you get three books. If you get second rank, you get I think five books, and if you get first rank, you get more than five books. So for each certificate, they would have that. And then if you came, came out as a topper for that whole grade, then you would have like a bundle of books altogether. and they would be age appropriate for the grade that you are studying. So I would always study hard just for, to be able to get those books, because back during those days it was, sort of like a financially low phase, for our family. So books were, a luxury. I feel more so than even gold, or than food even, for like a kid who especially loved getting lost in her own thoughts. Books were my escape, right? And because it was during the phase that, we moved from Abu Dhabi, so I was born there, and then we were like schooling over there, and then we moved to Bombay, and then it was a drastic change, different curriculum. It's like you went from like a high lifestyle to suddenly like, one where you had to just deal with how different the country is, and everything is different, right? Like, and just keep wondering like, why did we move here? So I was that kid, who kept pestering my parents like, what happened, why are we here? And then that sort of brought about that connection to books, because I was not able to, I feel, integrate with the different set of people that I came across. They were lovely. It was nothing wrong with any of my neighbors or the compound kids or the school kids. It was just that I was not able to move on from our life in Abu Dhabi. So my escape was books. I felt like I never really had any best friend or true friend there. I of course had a lot of friends, like you have your circles, but books were genuinely matter. And that's where the love started, and then it just went on. I remember I think the time I started reading was 3, when I was 3 years old. And I would read the books that my parents, had in their collection. It would not make sense to me, because, they were like diverse and like young adult, or like, adult magazines, not adult in that sense, but, like beyond the comprehension of a young kid. But I would sit with a dictionary, and then I would try to think of the pronunciation. We didn't have Google back then. So I had to really think about how do you pronounce, the particular words. I still remember island. I used to read it as is land, because back then there's no audio text that comes with it, right? With the dictionary. So fun times, that's where I feel the love for books come. That's why you will see that my house also, even now, the first thing, my first focus was we should have like a dedicated bookshelf. Now I'm planning to get one more bookshelf, because I've ordered another like 20 books, through my sister. So it's always about books, even like up there in the loft, under my bed, in my cupboard, almost all the places you'll see. It's like how people keep clothes, like that I have books, like cartons of books that I've read, to be read pile. There's this joke that is always circulating online. It's a sort of like a meme that this person finally died from the to be read pile of books falling over the person. So probably I'll be that, if I don't get to reading like before.
With
So yeah.
I mean, that's amazing, Grachel. I think like books are a safe space for children in a lot of ways, and it's a way to understand the world, but also explore the world, right? And as you were saying, I think that those books that you were reading growing up became that safe space for you. So I know, because I noticed you were always reading, when we were friends growing up as well. And I think
Yeah.
that was amazing. Like, what are some strategies you recommend for younger people if they want to take up reading? Because I know what helped you when you got started. What do you recommend? And I know you have a son now who is also somebody that really enjoys reading, because you've told me that you often enjoy reading out loud,
Yes.
right? So what are some things you recommend to parents and young children when they just get started with the reading habit?
Just read everything.
Mm.
Like what my mom did with us was, we would go grocery shopping, right? Like in Bombay, even the area we lived, it was not the mainstream cool Bombay. It was, you can say, outskirts of Bombay. It doesn't even fall in Bombay anymore. Before it, at least it was Thane. Now it's Palghar, right? So it's like on the western line, where Nala Sopara. So just before Virar. Okay. And so where we were brought up, it's like, you in India, you cannot leave kids alone anywhere. It's not like over here that you walk out and you know that your child will come back. So back then, when we were really tiny, my mom would take us grocery shopping, or wherever, wherever she would go. We would travel in that second class western railway line at the peak hours with like a big bags, and go to Ghatkopar to my auntie's place, or Vakola and like Andheri and all of that. So she would read out everything with us, like what's written on the train dabba also, like, ladies, gents, and then what's written on the billboards, what's written on the bus, the advertisements. And then we would look at vegetables, and then she would tell us to spell them out. Like when we're grocery shopping, she'd be like, okay, this is cucumber, like how do you spell this? Okay, look at that billboard, what's that spelling, what does that mean? So it was just like a fun activity. And I feel like my brother doesn't read, but if forced to, he can go through a book, right? So I genuinely believe you don't have to sit with like books. It's now of course you can, because there's a wide range of kids books available now, but back then it was majorly just read anything and everything. If I was bored, say in a hospital or in the train or wherever, if there's like, like this lavaris abandoned papers and brochures that people just leave behind at places, I would pick that up and read that as well. Like for me, it was all about like, okay, words are my friends, and doesn't matter if it makes sense, doesn't make sense, if it's related. I'm not a heart patient at 3-year-old, but I was like, oh, a pamphlet, instead of talking to strangers, might as well read a pamphlet. So just read anything. I tell even today my friends and my students that when you think of someone who reads, don't get intimidated by someone who reads, like, for example, see, this is like one of like now my cherished like items. It was a gift by my sister. Okay, so it's basically like the whole Bible, and then it has like the first half is the Bible verses, and the second half is the explanation of itself. So it's huge, right? So I always tell them, don't think of reading like reading, think of reading like, maybe just, reading like someone's like, what is this, like ID card over here, or like reading like a small book, or even reading the back of like a tissue box. It's like slow and steady. You build up. It's like Lego Duplo, like my son plays with, right? He makes these towers. So
Yeah.
it can be as basic as like a small Duplo block, and then you can go on. If you don't want, it's okay. There's no pressure to be like this intellectual reader and someone who reads really fat books, because
Yeah.
I feel that's where that it stems from, sort of like intimidation from books, like, oh, you so like smart logo ke liye hai. It's like for smart people or people who really are into like intellectual stuff. There's something for everyone,
Sure.
when it comes to books.
Yep.
So not necessarily just books, just pick up like newspapers. But I would suggest avoid screen reading, because that doesn't really penetrate our mind, I feel.
Okay. Okay.
So apart from the
Just
screen, pick up anything and read anything.
nice. Yeah, and those are great
And
suggestions,
your
Grachel.
dictionary should be your best friend.
Yeah, because that's a great way to expand your vocabulary as well, right? In terms of like just expanding and using more words. Like, but like in addition to that life as a reader, right, Rachel, I know you also identify as a third culture kid, which a lot of us do identify as. And you grow up in a different world, and your family is from India. You did move around from Abu Dhabi to Bahrain, but then you also
Yes.
moved back to India for university, right? So what were
Yes, I was like this shuttlecock, I feel,
I know,
throughout
so
my life.
I'm just curious, what was that experience like for you, and how did that shape your identity? And what was, university like in terms of the academic and social experiences for you? Because I know that phase of your life was also quite interesting in terms of learning and growth at a personal level. So, how did that shape and change your identity?
So I feel, when I was in Abu Dhabi, I was really small, so I don't really remember a lot of it. But that was, like you say, the high life, right? The cream of the society. So then how you move around and you experience things is totally different when you have a lot of money. And then when you go to like no money, and then you go back to like some money, right? So there is sort of like a curve and a different kind of journey that, happens in all these phases. I always feel like it's, when I was in Abu Dhabi, I was like this, quintessential child born with like a golden spoon, not even like a silver one. And then I couldn't, wrap my head around, like our 8 years. We were there in India for like 8 years. So since like I was like three till three, not three really, like four, like that, till I was 10, I was in India. And over there I was just always this kid who felt like I'm superior to others. And then I used to show that arrogance, sort of like I'm stuck in the wrong place, like where have you put me? And I had, you could like sense that resentment and that sort of like dark aura around me even as a kid. If you'll see all my pictures from back then, so my mother chronicles, everything in life. Okay, so you'll see that it's like this grumpy, kid with attitude, and it's crazy because when someone asks me what shaped you as a person, right? Today when my students, they ask me, Miss, like, how are you like this? And I always tell them it's my experience from India, right? So the fact that I used, when I was living that, I was resentful of it, but then that's what really shaped me. I wouldn't even say my journey in the school that we went to together, that definitely did not shape me. Okay, I feel like that sort of like disfigured my personality more than shaping me. Because it was, like when you expect, you think you come to the Gulf and you're like, wow, because school, you look at the prospectus of the school and you're like, wow, so many activities and blah, 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 CBSE curriculum and, all of that. But trust me, like the 200 rupees per month fees that my parents paid in India during those 8 years, that education was, genuine, shaping you, while learning. It was sort of like, how we had, you had to stick to like the curriculum and all of that, but it, pushed the students to achieve their best. There was never once, maybe like one two teachers, but overall the teachers were the kind who believe that even if you're a 50% ranker, a 60% or 80%, there is a purpose to your life and you will get that. Our job is to get you through the academic part of it, because that's the need of the world. But they had this thing of empowering us to not feel dumb, even if, even though I never fell in the 50% percentile, but you know we never had that thing that,
Yeah.
oh, these are like the, we didn't have this nerds and like dumb kids. It was just kids, and
Yeah.
it used to be classrooms of like 60, 70 students,
Yeah.
and the teacher used to connect to each and every one of us,
Nice.
right? So that whole aspect, right, apart from like the, I feel of the financial phase, the education part was, I feel, the best that I had when I was in India.
Wow.
Then comes Bahrain, right? So I came here with like big dreams, in my eyes. I joined our school, and the first day itself was a cultural shock,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it was a cultural shock, educational shock, like almost all the shocks that you can give a student who was looking forward to like a better education, right? But I felt it was many steps behind the education that I was receiving in India.
Okay.
But like, you have to do what you have to do, so I put up with it. There was a lot of sort of like bullying that I went through, more like, not, I would say, the students, but mainly from like my teachers, which was again something new for me, right? Just because of the state that we belong to, and for not speaking in the way that they expected a kid from India to speak, like, so all of those aspects really, like, threw me off the curve, and I
That's
feel I sort of
interesting to
like
hear.
lost my way.
Yeah, because I think as a teacher, it's also interesting to hear your perspective because you're in the other role. It's really important to understand how teachers also look at some of these issues. So I really like how you're able to share that experience of growing up in that environment. And I think every child goes through the positive and the negative, and you learn from both experiences, right? So you were telling us about Bahrain, Grachel, but what was it like moving to university in terms of, because I know you studied commerce, and I'm
Yes.
curious why you picked that particular field and what was interesting about that field for you. Because I know you were in a particular batch of commerce that had IT as a subject, and then
Multimedia.
multimedia, and then you had accounting and management at
Yes.
university. So, what was your experience with those subjects?
So I was, I was watching that talk you had with Kritika, and I was thinking, because she was my classmate,
Yeah,
for those 2 years, and also my first year in our school together.
yeah,
So the fact that I used to always think, like, what made me not realize that I wanted to be a teacher. So I don't know if you remember Himanshu from our batch.
yeah.
Himanshu Suvarna, yeah. So he's a very good friend. Okay, so over the years, we reconnected, and there was this conversation, finally last year I told him, oh, guess what, like, I became a full-fledged teacher, and then he was like, oh, finally. And I said, what do you mean by finally? And he's like, there was this some politician had come to a school, Alphonse something, and then he had asked like people, what do you want to become? And then he told me that I said I wanted to become a teacher, and I went at length to speak about it. And I was like, I don't recall that at all, and he remembers that this was like back in like eighth, ninth grade. So imagine, that's like forever ago, right? And then I was like, it's literally everyone around me, my loved ones who like genuinely know me, they know that. They were like, finally, that was their reaction to teaching. I feel our experience in university in India also really shaped, right? Like all my good learning experiences come from Bombay, because it's so diverse. You lived there, right, for so many years. It's such a diverse mix of this fast paced rat race, but it's a rat race that when you're in it, you don't really hate it, you love it.
Yeah.
And you come across people from different states, different countries, different backgrounds, different stratas of society, sitting together at the same table holding amazing conversations.
Yeah.
There's no religion bar, or like caste bar, or language bar, or skin bar, or any education bar. It's like, okay, let's just like have a chat, right? So that same thing happened to us in the college we went to. So we had it very straightforward. So Hamid and I, right, we decided that we have to study in the same university, and we were not even looking at the the Ivy League, kind of like the ones which are known for like the hip and cool crowd, because I was like, no way am I shelling out donation for the same education that we'll be getting in like probably a low level, sort of like a basic university but known for academics. So we had that really straightforward cut out for us, and we also knew that we are not the partying kind. So that was again out of the question to want to go into circles like that. So we just applied to colleges that were realistically close to where we lived. At that point, I was living in Ghatkopar with my aunt, and Hamid was living 10 minutes away in Vikhroli. So we knew the horrors shared by my cousins, and I myself had lived that, right, like the traveling bit when I was growing up for 8 years. So I knew it's not realistic to want to just go to like a bigger college just to die there and then come back home all drained out.
Because travel is
So
dangerous,
we
right?
applied. Yes,
Yeah.
like
The,
it would be more than 2 hours,
yeah.
if you don't catch the train, or if you get stuck in the train and then they take you all the way to the end point and then you come back. That happened to Hamid, by the way, multiple times. So we were like, we'll just apply, and based on merit, wherever we get, we'll take it. Because um in my 12th grade, like towards the end, I really threw away my exams. Like genuinely, I threw them away, and I ended up scoring a 76 percentile, which was extremely low and shocking, and it was the lowest point of my life. So I had told my parents that, see, this was out of my stupidity, right? Because I gave other things in my life precedence over securing a good percentage. And I mean, a percentage that I could have achieved, right, like at like the level that was appropriate for me. So I told them that I'll just take a seat in any university that will accept me, and I will not ask you to shell out any extra donation or whatsoever. And Hamid also said, yeah, like same, I just want to go to university that will not loot me for being a foreigner.
Yeah.
So that was the criteria. And of course, like good education. So we went to Andrews, then we went to quite like 2 3 colleges, but then we really liked the feel of SIS, because I feel we are those kind of like ancient souls stuck in like this young body. So we like that very basic kind of feel, like no stress, no like show, and all of that, no window dressing kind of college. It was very basic, like just like literally like it's like a square, and that's all. There's no like, oh, this club and that club. I mean, they had, but then it was not at the level that was probably in the south side of Bombay.
Sure.
So we got in, I got in first merit list, he got in the second merit list. And you won't believe it, like we had university from 7 to 11 a.m. But our teachers were not the kind, just because we have 150 students in class, they would just teach whatever, write whatever, and move out. I mean, that's what I went expecting, because I was like, oh, South Indian Education Society, the same like the school we had back in Bahrain. But we were in for a shock. We had the best of teachers who were really invested in our future, and they would teach things, you could see that they love the subject, they love us, and they love teaching. It's not just a job that they're doing for money or for security. Of course, it's a part of their life, but it, day in and day out, for those 3 years we had the same teachers. You could see the love they had, for the profession. And whenever I would speak to you, or like Harshit, or like our other friends who were studying there, they would be like, yeah, our professors are the authors of the textbooks that all of us shared. But they said that their professors would never like teach much in school, or like in college, or even come for class. They'd just be like, okay, read the textbook, I've written it. So we didn't have that. So I felt, like that gamble. I always tell my students when they say like, Miss, what's the success, criteria? How can we become, I mean, become rich, or like, stay successful? I say it's to fill this, not to fill your pockets. Like if you are, rich over here, you can, get out of any situation in life. Literally, you can turn your life around, right? Because there's this saying that my mother tells me, my nani used to tell everyone, that anyone can strip you off your clothes. Even like now it's Lent season, right? And like it's the season of when Jesus was crucified for being innocent, for dying for like our sins, like we believe in as Catholics. So he was stripped of his clothes. He was made to carry like his cross, and he was nailed to it and killed, right? But they still couldn't take what he was away from him. So I believe education is that people can take literally everything away from you, they cannot snatch away your education. Because even if they tear your certificates or your degrees, what you have here is something that will always remain here.
Yep.
So just that aspect, our professors in India were so amazing, that just, and what a coincidence, today my accounting and business professor, he messaged me on Facebook randomly, like after so long. And he's like, how are you, and how's Hamid? Because we were those front bench kids who would have like different notebooks for each subject with our color coded pens and like a scale and pencil pouch and all of that. So he's like, how are you guys? And I told him, sir, like I'm teaching now, business and all. And he's like, wow, like you're a teacher. So like that joy you get of like connecting with your amazing teachers. And I'm day in and day out. Even Anand sir, no matter what I said about like the schooling that we had here, there were some true gems in our school.
Yeah.
So Anand sir, because I teach business, he was my business teacher, right? I messaged him like some months back, and I told him, sir, I used that example that you told us of in business class. So it truly stays, it truly stays with you.
Yeah.
And the university experience, that even though we lived in Bombay like what for 3 years, we were there for like, I was there for like around 3.5 4 years, but we would meet only when someone else would come to
Yeah.
visit Bombay. Because that's how rich the life over there is, right? When it comes to learning, not just in the universities we were at, but just in life overall. I mean, look at you. I still remember, you wrote 2 books. Unfortunately, we did not make it. I was like, we will go all the way to South Bombay, and because of like our colleges being on a different timeline altogether. But you ended up doing so much. And I felt like whenever I would look at you, I mean, I've known you since what, 8th grade, right? So I was like, wow, like Shetty has finally gone into his own element, which is devoid of what people had put him into. And I think the same happened to me, but at a much later stage. I feel it would have been faster if I was around you more often.
No, but I've
So
I've
yeah.
learned so much from the way you've structured your career as well. Because I remember once we were on a bus. I think we were going to meet some friends in Pune, and we were talking about accounting and how accounting is like the very basic, subject that's used to maybe keep records of society. So
Yes.
I enjoyed that conversation. And like, what about your professional experiences, Grachel? After university, I know you had a stint in a couple of corporate organizations, and then you moved back to Bahrain. And so how did that transition to teaching happen, and what were some of the factors that led to that?
Okay. So, like post that financial crunch that, I was telling you about that our family was in, I had this mental mindset that, and I was the youngest back then, till my cousin came along at my mom's side of the family, right? So all my cousins back then, they all had moved to US, or they were in like different countries across the world, but definitely like no one was in India. So I had this thing that I should emulate what they have done. And a good life means finally migrating, working hard to migrate to US, or say Australia or Germany, right? Those were the countries that they were in at that point and still are. So I was working towards that, and I was that kind of student. I don't know if it's like fortunate, I feel like it's more unfortunate, who used to get like good marks in all subjects. So it sort of didn't help me understand, like, okay, where can I really go into, right? I had a strong love for science, but then I knew that we can't afford to get into that, because how expensive anything related to medicine, etc. is. And I knew that I will not be able to put in that kind of effort to go through the scholarship and all of that. So I was like, okay, cancel, doctor, cancel. Then I was like, engineering, same thing, I was like, cancel. Maybe I would have continued if we had continued to live in India. Like for sure I would have turned into a doctor, or like probably a gynecologist, or an engineer, because in India it's like you're continuously in that same mindset of like working hard, and like making it big. I don't know if you have seen that, but Bombay has that that whole vibe going for most of the people. But we moved here, so like life here is like, yay. Complacent, even if you're not really from a very well off family, but then the whole atmosphere is of of a bubble,
Yeah.
right? And you're cushioned from a lot of realities of life. You don't see beggars begging on the street. You don't have to struggle to get from point A of Bahrain to like point B. So
Yeah.
that just like life devoid of seeing any struggle in front of my eyes, I feel like that just made me like very comfortable in like just like getting good marks. And then of course, like the vibe of the school as well. So I sort of like just stopped, thinking of like what then. I was like, okay, what's the most money making profession? And back then, how in our school they used to always say CA, or like for commerce it's CA, or like CS, or along those lines. And then for science it's doctors or engineers, nothing apart from that. I don't think we were ever introduced to even graphic design back then. So those were the only things I knew. So I was like, okay, goal is to make money and to get success. Success means you have to do C, and then also for us, most of our batchmates, those who came from like the well off backgrounds, they came from like a CA background, right? And that was also portrayed and like shown to us as examples that you can become this if you go along this path. So I feel I just like went with the flow. I was like, okay, got like full marks in accounting, and also might as well just pick that up for university. And I didn't even know like there are courses like BMS, etc. Like we were these like fresh kids from Bahrain who only knew of like the standard courses that were there, not really much aware. And plus we didn't we me and Hamid were not the kind who took help from our parents for anything. So literally, right from going to the colleges to selecting the colleges, the courses, we did everything. We never like fell back on them for anything, paying the fees or whatever.
That's
It
awesome.
was all our decision.
Yeah.
So because we were like they have done so much for us, why trouble them with this also?
Yeah.
So we would just like went with the flow. But by God's grace, it all worked out. Then we did accounting management again. Like I was my batch topper. Hamid was a topper. I remember I taught him one subject and he got more marks than me, and I was like, this is not fair, because I was like, the student should never surpass the teacher, back then. So both of us were like, okay, we'll go back to Bahrain, we'll do ACCA. He's Bahraini, so that's a good scope for me. Also, it's a good scope. We came back here, and life was totally different from what we had imagined.
Yeah.
So when I would go for interviews, they would say things like, oh, so what will happen if you get married, and if you're a girl, so it's like difficult for you to get. And because we didn't use connections, like we were just like going with like whatever vacancies we were finding online.
Right.
So Hamid just took up the job that he found at the bank. And I'm glad he did, because as soon as he did, he dropped out of ACC, and he said like, this is not for me. And I still because I was I don't know if you knew this, but then I was very competitive in school. So
Yeah.
I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that I'm not able to connect with what I'm studying.
Yeah.
So I went on to waste like good like 3 years, trying to get in my head into that, and clear the exams. And then I was just like, I wasted a lot of money, right? And money that was not mine, my like my parents, hard earned money.
Yeah.
And then finally, my mother, she put the foot down and she said that, you wasted a lot, and if you don't write the next exam, we are going to stop the funding for this. And honestly, at that moment I felt like disappointed myself, but I was relieved that it's going to end.
Yeah. I think
So
sometimes it's important to know when to,
just
change your
say,
paths as well. Right? Sorry, I was just
yes,
thinking, like, I think it's very important to know when, like, once you put in the effort, is this really for you or not? And I think it's important to acknowledge that and understand which is the best path for you going forward, so that I feel like that is really essential. We're just gonna,
yeah, sorry, my internet, it was lagging and I realized it was connected to the slow one, so then I just changed
oh,
that. Yeah,
okay. But
yeah,
I
you
was
said
just,
it's important to know, and
yeah.
then I lost you. Yes.
No, I was just saying that it's important to know when you need to, make another decision regarding your career. And I think it's so important with the age of the internet to realize that you can make those changes. You can reskill and start from scratch in another sector or field as well. So I'm sure you went along with a process like that as well, right?
Yes, so more than the internet, I felt, like my Toastmaster journey. So, what happened is I came here, then the ACCA was not happening, but then I was still pursuing it when I got married. So I got married like pretty young, like when I tell older people, this is like that's the correct age, beta, and I'm like, yeah, but like for our generation, it's considered pretty young. So after that I was still pursuing it, but then I realized that I should get working in something. If not accounting is not happening, then might as well in something else while I still pursue ACCA. So when I joined Toastmasters, then just to like because I felt like my thinking and my talking skills and all of that, the cogs were all rusted, to like just oil them and get them
What
moving.
is Toastmasters for someone that doesn't know about it?
Yeah, so Toastmasters is not someone who gives toasts at weddings, okay, but then it will help you for that. Okay, so it's basically this world organization. The headquarters is in US, and it was started by Ralph C. Smedley. So it's basically public speaking, like a place you get together, no matter what background you come from, what age, etc. You come together to basically go through these different pathways. Now it's called pathways, different modules at your own pace to become like a good public speaker. And then they have again like different levels at it. India and like Bahrain, and there are so many Toastmaster clubs across the world, and it's really good for someone who is seeking for sort of like connections and is not able to find that by themselves. So there is a Toastmaster club for like every kind of person, right? Like if you're a CA, there's like CA Toastmasters, then there's like teacher bases, then there are youth Toastmasters, then like older generation. So there are so many kinds. So it's an amazing place to be, where you then get a mentor, and then when you climb up the hierarchy, whether you want to open pathways for you as like a genuine, like a trainer, public speaking trainer, because most of the corporates now, corporate organizations, they have those training sessions, etc., like where they empower you to speak well, present well, and all of that. So it was something, one of our batchmates, actually, he used to always tell me, Seth, he used to always tell me like, Rachel, you should join Gable's Club. So Gable's Club, it's like for under 18, and then post 18 it's Toastmasters.
Yeah, and that's, I think, like going to like a public speaking institution really helps you with your communication skills, right? And I think that
Yes.
translates into any work and personal experience as well. So I'm
Yes.
sure you saw the effect of that there. And
Yes, like even if you don't become a Shakespeare or someone who speaks, with an amazing accent, like the desirable Western accent, or doesn't have a huge grasp over vocabulary, and you sort of like have these what is this R counter? Like we had R counter is basically someone who counts how many breaks and pauses, unnecessary repetitions you
oh,
do. So then you pay for each that you use. So we had that, right? Like they would charge me now for this and like the like and all of that. So it's something really good because it gives you confidence. We had so many people, who thought that being a good toastmaster means, having to be the ability to speak amazing English, but it's not that. It's basically owning who you are, owning your heritage, owning where you come from, and I feel mainly owning the accent and not feeling that less than, when you're talking to someone with a desired accent. I feel that really runs deep in third culture kids, and especially, like Indians. I feel like, we have this thing that, oh, the Indian accent, and I'm like, yeah, of course, like, you don't shame someone who comes with a French accent or a Russian accent, right? So why do we shame each other, when we talk about someone from a different state in India itself, right?
Yeah,
So why do we have that? So it gets you thinking, and it gives you that confidence to be who you are and to own it, and own it your way. Like, you want, okay, brush up your English and, try to match it with the country of, the birth of English. But if you cannot, well and done, it's a global world now,
and
so
I
it
think
teaches you to do that.
that's probably a legacy of colonialism, and us placing accents from a certain country on a pedestal. But I think there are different ways to speak English, and each way is unique and important in its own respect. And so how did that transition to teaching happen eventually, Grachel? What was
Yeah.
it for you?
So then the whole Toastmasters thing happened, and I then ended up applying as an intern to this one design company, and then I got in as an intern. Within my first week of internship, they offered me the job, and it was in marketing. So I basically took over for the previous social media manager, but I was because I was new to that field, I was social media um, representative. So like account representative. Most people think account means accounting. No, account means client.
Yeah.
Okay, like in the marketing sense. So that time, I was handling around like 20 to 23 clients, which was a lot. Like for someone, first of all, who is new, and then someone who believed that you should work for how much you're being paid for. I didn't believe in this whole thing, love your company as you would love your own company. If I wanted to love my own company, I would start my own. The fact that I'm working for someone else means I want that slot of, like, check in, check out, check out. Not work once I'm coming home,
Yeah.
and then let it bleed over into my life. And
Yeah, because you were
you know
also a young mother and a
no,
wife.
that time I was just like newly married at
Okay.
that phase.
Okay.
But it was really taking a toll on my health, because I also have PCOS. So it was taking a major toll on my health, and then also in my relationships, because wherever I went, I was working. And then they had this thing, client is supreme, you should answer your client all the time. I'm like, so what about me? I'm not a robot. I'm a human being, and you should treat me like one. You don't just make someone work like a donkey because someone else is working like a donkey in the company. Okay.
True.
And you know how it is, right? If someone sits till 11 o'clock, they want everyone to sit till 11 o'clock at night. I'm talking about at night. Like on Fridays, I was getting up at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. There even came a point where they were telling Hamid to translate things, when, into Arabic. So he was like, what is this, ridiculous behavior? And it was not about the remuneration, it was more like treat a person like a human being. I understand the technological revolution, and then the whole global aspect, and becoming successful and carving your niche, but not at the cost of carving out of someone else's life.
Sure.
And first I really enjoyed it, but then I started losing, like, and I enjoyed it because it meant like writing, for campaigns, marketing campaigns and all of that. But it just died out, like my work, just crashed, because I was like, where do I derive it from? There's no time for relaxing, for recreational activities. It was like I was not the kind who wanted to work 24 hours.
Sure.
Then but then still, because I realized it's a good like field to be in, it was paying more than the accounting field was offering. And then I was getting offers from my Toastmaster circle as well. So then I then kept like hopping jobs, but then same thing everywhere. Finally I landed on a job that I really liked, but then the company ditched me. And this was when I was pregnant, so I took the job up when I was 5 months pregnant, and I was working day in and day out. Okay. And I was working even from the hospital while I'm in the middle of, like, like they have induced me, to like have my baby, and I'm working there making folders for my teammates to get what they need when I am out of office.
Wow.
And after that as well, but then the company ended up ditching me, so I just that also took a toll on me. And then I was just like, what, I'm going to look for something better, and I landed something better in terms of like job status and money. But then again, like they say, like golden cage, that was the that was the metaphorical, not literal golden cage. It even was golden, the interiors and all of that.
Yeah.
So Hamid told me, Grachel, you have to make a choice. You have to either gun for money or gun to stay alive, and I would rather you stay alive, because you're really losing yourself.
Yeah.
And at this rate you are just going to crash, and we will not be able to bring you back.
Yeah.
So then we took like the tough call, and it was tough to get out of that job because it was quite difficult.
Yeah.
But then I did that somehow, got out of it, and then I decided, what, I'll apply to some other places, but I think I will just focus on being home and getting my health back in sync.
Yeah.
Because like most oftentimes people have this misconception that everyone who is fat has gained weight by eating. But in 12th grade there was like a huge like crisis in my life, like when it came to my like friend circle. And that along with my board exam stress triggered my PCOS actually. And just by eating the usual food that I was eating, I put on 20 kgs, 20 in 1 month in like 12th grade,
Okay.
right? And after that it was just a struggle, like a yo-yo, because with PCOS it doesn't matter whether you're eating healthy or exercising. You have to be stress free, you have to eat well, and you have to rest well and exercise well. So
What
all
is
four should be there.
and what does PCOS stand for,
It's
Grace?
a polycystic ovarian syndrome. It's also called like PCOD in some cases, where so basically usually what happens is, in like girls, you have this monthly cycle, right? And during that monthly cycle there are these eggs that cysts sort of like that form in your ovaries, and then they dissolve and then they flush out of your system. But in PCOS what happens, those cysts don't flush out, and they stay, and they like multiply, or like they get bigger, and it throws your whole like hormonal cycle into a crazy like shocked state. And then it's a lifelong thing. Unfortunately, because it's not cancer, people don't take it serious, but it's as bad as cancer, because it basically makes you pre-diabetic. You're prone to depression and all other kinds of blooms. You are at an increased risk of heart attacks as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, people do overcome it and they lead a healthy lifestyle, but it's not like I lose weight and like, yay, I'm done. It's a lifelong thing. So literally till I die, I have to be stress free, eat healthy, I need to sleep well, and I need to exercise, and I need to I cannot even exercise like the usual exercises, because if that triggers stress in my body again, I will put on weight.
Right.
So that's why I have this joke with my family that I wish I had eaten and gained weight. At least I would have felt happy. This is like you just get taunted for being fat when it was a medical condition, and is right a medical condition.
Yeah.
So that happened, and then I quit that job, and I started being at home. But because of a lack of routine, and I was just like with myself so much, and I had a very traumatic last trimester of pregnancy, and a very like traumatic birth experience. I almost like when my parents still today, they cannot believe that they did not take it serious. I was telling them that take care of Miku and Hamid, if I die. And they were like, what are you saying, you'll be fine, because I was actually at the verge of death. But because I'm the kind of person who laughs in all situations and cracks jokes, they were like, nee, nothing's going to happen. I was in the hospital for half a month
Oh.
after I gave birth. And it was an emergency C-section, and like my organs were on the verge of, like collapse, of shutting down, because I got septic shock. So septicemia. So like the usual, what is this bar for infection in your blood should not cross, I think 30, 50 something. I was at like 200 plus.
Wow. Okay.
And like I had pneumonia, and then I had 5 kinds of infections, and I was not responding to drugs as well.
Wow.
Like to an extent that RCSI students came to do a case study on me. They were like, because it's so rare, so I was like, okay, I'm dying, might as well help them, because I had already given in. I was like, if they're not able, I'm not responding to drugs, then what, right? Like
Yeah.
what else will help? So that happened, and then that after that the traumatic work happened. So Hamid was like, no way, like I'm not going to, it's okay, we'll have dal rice, but don't work. And
Yeah.
he was literally the only support at that time. Because you know how it is when you're working at an amazing job, getting an amazing package where everyone else, many people around you are always, there is always going to be someone who is struggling.
Sure. Yeah.
So everyone was like, you're crazy, you're wasting your potential. Grachel is just sitting at home, taking care of her kid and like hatching eggs and like doing nothing and gaining weight. I got that from all the circles of my life,
Yeah.
be it like mainly friends and family and people who don't even know me and who came in contact with me. As soon as you say you're sitting at home, oh, housewife, like as if it's such an
Yeah.
easy thing to do.
And it's
uh,
so unfair, right, Rachel? How I
yes,
think it's unfair because men have it easy in that sense. Like we don't give birth, so we don't often realize the body changes and the pressure of being a mother in terms of just uh, giving birth, but also the onset of situations right after you give birth. And I don't think workplaces are as accommodative to those
yes,
needs.
yes.
And I think because of that, I have a lot of friends, and I've it's just so hard to make sure you're a good mother and make sure you are doing your job well. That shouldn't be an option, right? You should have to
Yes.
be able to do both, but it's hard. And I completely like relate, I mean, understand why patriarchal sort of workplaces would not appreciate and respect that
See,
as much.
honestly, even though we live in a patriarchal society, back in the day, I used to be like, yes, like I'm a woke feminist and all of that. But I have like radically shifted to the other side. I agree with like, what the patriarchal society is doing. And I understand why. Because, like you mentioned, men cannot give birth, right? A woman is, no matter what anyone says, she is the primary caregiver because of the fact that the child has come out of your body,
Yeah.
right? Literally from your living cells, right? So I agree with that. Even the reason why I'm working now is, of course, like I needed that kind of routine, and it's a necessity of life. But if given a choice, I would happily sit at home and be a housewife, because I believe in like that structure of society, because there is no way you can balance both out. There is no way. No matter how accommodating your workplace is, there is only one of you,
Yeah.
right?
In
And
the
you
early
cannot.
years, like I think that the
Yes.
child really needs one parent,
Yes,
especially.
especially you have also studied that, right? 0 to 7 are the formative years.
Correct. Yeah.
And my mother, she was a full-fledged working lady, when we were in Abu Dhabi. She would work 20, 22 hours. It's like they were making a lot of money, but I don't have any memories of spending time with them. I have memories of spending time with our full-time nanny, though, like, who was also our house help.
Yeah.
But because we had to relocate to India for whatever circumstances, I cherish those years because my mother was there till I was 10,
Wow.
and that whole grocery shopping thing and teaching us to read and all wouldn't have happened if she was working.
Sure.
Definitely not.
I think this is a good part to transition into like this last phase of the interview, Grachel. What was your experience with motherhood like? And, I think I also want to acknowledge, Hamid's role in terms of, him just being the rock for you as well. And I know Hamid because he was in the same school that all of us went to, and he's just such a wonderful, kind human being. But, what was that relationship like? And, how has motherhood changed you as a person? I really want to know more about that.
So I was always this person, who was, I feel, seeking love in all my relations, be it friendship, be it, in my like love life, or, anyone I would meet. People have this perception of me that, there's only a 0 or 100 to creation, which is true. I do not do anything like 50%. It's either like I'm all in or nothing. I cannot be half invested or like 20% invested in something or someone.
Got it.
And I had this thing where I was seeking acceptance. Like for me, friends are like family, and all of that. And while my life was all chaos, like my friends stopped talking to me, then I was going through a difficult phase because I was a teenager. Rebellion was in my blood at that point, so I was having a turbulent life at home with my dad as well. So that time, Hamid came as like a fresh breeze. He was not even supposed to be actually what is this serious romantic interest. But then I'm glad how it turned out, because he is the ideal partner. Like when I say this, I want everyone who would be watching this to know that, of course, we have had our terrible downs and our amazing ups. But just like in PK, Amir Khan said, no one comes with the ISO stamp, on his on their butts, right? About like the warranty or like the religion.
Yeah.
So just like that, even if when you fell in love with someone for a reason, right? Of course, each and every day you will change based on the circumstances, based on what's happening, between you, between, like, around the world that they are living in, apart from just your life.
Yeah.
And it can bring out the ugliest sides, like I had many ugly sides, over the years. So did he. But it's all about thinking of it, like, see, this is Ruby. So I name my plants. So this is Ruby, right? So imagine if, Ruby today, now she has like this black, this spot here. Does it mean I'll throw away Ruby? Like, Ruby is kachra now. I don't know. I'll be like, okay, Ruby, I will take out like this black, spot, and we'll see how we can bring you back to health,
Yeah.
right? So in today's generation of Tinder and TikTok and I don't know, Binder, and I don't know what other apps are there out there, where you are literally shopping for people and changing them like clothes, worse than tissue. I feel, people are treated worse than tissue now. Even if, the partner you have chosen, takes a wrong turn, or you are really struggling, sticking that out, because, fix that plan,
Yeah.
because the next person is again not coming with a guarantee,
Yeah. I think it's
right?
important to work through the challenging phases of a relationship, right? And I think
Like,
a lot.
I wouldn't throw Miku out, right? Like my son, I wouldn't throw him out just because, he's naughty or he failed, or, even if he commits a terrible crime, yes, I'll punish him. But you don't just throw them out of existence, out of your life.
Yeah.
So I feel that, that aspect of forgive, forgive, forget, but don't be foolish. Forgive, but don't be foolish, and don't hold grudges. Yeah, like, you never know who is going to drop dead tomorrow.
True.
All said and done, I have had so many, instances where, so many relationships, and all of that have fallen apart. And I feel all of that, together, if I wouldn't have gone through that, I wouldn't be the teacher I am today. It's literally, like how actors say that, just watching people is what, enriches my art. I feel going through all these experiences is what, it has enriched like my teaching.
Yeah.
Like, you won't believe, I see your cooking, and I use that example in my business class. Okay, so we have in our lesson plan this, part of, right, real life connections. In every lesson you need to have it.
Okay.
So I was teaching my students marketing mix, and I was like, see, marketing mix is like biryani. Okay. Now in biryani, what are the integral like elements? They were like, miss chicken, and like, the rice and the masala. And then they said like one more thing. So I was like, yeah, so these four are the main parts of marketing mix which have to be there, like product, place, promotion, price.
I think you have that natural talent, Grachel, to make. And even now, when you were explaining the example of the plant, right? You showed me the example. I feel like you have that natural skill to look at things as a teacher and to convert it into a teaching moment. And I think that is what makes you such a wonderful teacher. But just knowing you over the years, Grachel, I want to be respectful of time. I have learned a lot from you in terms of how you have maintained your relationships. Just such a wonderful mother. You're just so inspiring in that sense, but also how you have sustained your social relationships and your professional life at the same time, balancing all these roles. And I would recommend for the listeners, I know this is just a small start to get to know Grachel's journey, is do reach out to Grachel on other social media platforms. I will be linking some social media platforms. Grachel reads a lot, so we didn't get into an in-depth conversation about all the wonderful books that she's read. I've got so many great books, TV show, and film recommendations from Grachel.
There's not much of a social life now, by the way. It's basically, I stay in touch with like whoever crosses my mind. And especially to all the listeners, I wanted to share this amazing gem of a moment, that I had with Shetty. I call Abhishek Shetty. Okay.
Yeah.
So like, when I had visited India after I had Miku, when he was 2 months old, for like a wedding. How, usually it comes naturally to me, like, people say it's chasing people, but then I feel it's, I miss someone, I love someone, I will go after them. I will not think like, are, she didn't call or he didn't call, why should I call? I don't have that. So I would, like, go after like my friends and all, even if they're not in touch, because I didn't think of it as a duty or a task I'm doing. It's like, I remembered you, I'll text you. So I had contacted Mr. Shetty over here, and he was literally the only friend of mine who genuinely understood that I'm a new mother. My child is 2 months old. And he said, I quote, okay, I still remember. I think it's close to verbatim. So, I'm sure it was exact. I still remember. He said that, Grachel, you are, a mom now, and you are in a new phase of life. So people who are, at a easier phase of life, like single, should be more accommodating to you.
Yeah.
And that really has stayed with me, like that really helped me stop being a doormat, in the sense, like I feel I, from being giving Noof as well, she tells me, she like, Rachel, you're like, that glass, you give, and then no one is refilling
Yeah.
anything back, right? So she was like, you should do that, because unfortunately the world we live in today, they they give value only to someone who makes them chase you, like they love the chase, they don't like genuineness. They feel like, oh my god, like, like what's happening. And I feel like going through all of that, and I always remember, what you say, even today,
Okay.
when I go through any phases, I always think like, if Shetty could say that, I'm sure that it's something that people can find in themselves, right? Like,
Yeah.
I know everyone, has their journeys, but if you remember someone, don't think, are, she didn't call or he didn't call. When was the last time they made an effort? You miss someone, you call them, because friendships are the only relation you make by choice, right? Like, life partner is for life, child is for life, parents are for life, God is for life, but friends are the only one that you keep and you remove from your life based on your choice. So I feel that's the relation that you cannot have this, he doesn't call, so I'll not call.
True, and
So
I'm so glad you mentioned that, and I totally agree. I think I really value our friendship, and also just getting to know you and Hamid has, hopefully one day I can be, a parent and as good as the both, maybe half the
you
parents.
already are. Harshit told me this when I told him, I'm starting, full-fledged teaching. He said, you like, I want, more kids. And, with PCOS,
Yeah,
it's always, like, when will the next kid happen, sort of a thing.
yeah.
So he told me, till the next kid happens, doesn't happen. Now you are the mother of so many kids, right? And,
Yeah,
that really, like, just like that, because yes, home is the primary life, but then the school is what really shapes your experiences with the outside world.
true. So you're a mother.
Like,
You're already the mother to a bunch of children already, right? And I think I'm the
yes, 100, like 100 kids. Yeah. Grade 11, 64, and grade 9, I have like 36.
yeah.
So I always tell him, you're all my kids, even if you're taller than me, broader than me, you'll always, like, for me, you are kids. Like, I only see you as children, in front of me.
That's great. And on that positive note, I'd like to, come to the end of this interview again, just to, for the listeners, please make sure you, follow up on this conversation and reach out to Grachel. And she's on some social media platforms that I will link in the show notes. But Grachel, thanks for doing this interview. I'm sorry. I know we've been scheduling this for the longest.
No, it's fine. As for the being the teacher bit, right? Like, it literally was thrown at me. I was not even applying. I was studying, like, to become a teacher, but it was something like I wanted to keep my mind, occupied, even though my plan was to continue to be a housewife. And then, randomly there was a vacancy, and then, someone I knew, they just like forwarded my CV without telling me, and then they called me for an interview, and then the perfectionist in me was like, I don't want the job, but I cannot even like spoil it. And then that's how the process happened.
Wow.
And then then now I'm again going to study, because IB, right, every like few years when the syllabus changes, you have to take up the course again. So
Yeah.
now this June I'll be doing so again, because the syllabus for my subject business has changed again.
Oh,
So I really like that. It's like reading and studying and interacting with live people. I
yeah.
feel fulfillment, for me, like in the other jobs I had, was missing. Like, I was like, okay, I'm making money for the company, but what is it doing? Apart from that, what is it doing?
True.
So this is like live, right? You see the students in your class, you see the difference you're making.
True.
So now I get why all the teachers, we had, chose that profession, even though it's sometimes it's a thankless one. It's because of that sense of, I'm grooming children, right? Live beings.
Yeah, and I'm sure your kids really appreciate your presence in their life.
And you were an inspiration, Shetty, because for me it was like, if Shetty, turned his, full focus and specialization around and he went into teaching, I was like, and always, you remember, we used to compete with each other in eighth grade. In eighth grade, we used to compete for, like the ranks in class. So I was like, Shetty can do it. I can also do it. So you played a huge role when it came to being that, like I say, like, Shetty now is like this, this sun that you go around and you're like, so warm. There's nothing bad that comes out of his, sun rays. So, you are that. And I'm so happy to see, whenever we share anything about what's happening, most of our conversations are never hi, hello. It's like, oh, I did this in class, I did that
Yeah,
in class. And
I
sometimes
really
we'll respond like forever late. Like, I think we rescheduled this interview, what, 6, 7 more times over
we
since
did.
last year.
Actually, like just for the
We've been
listeners,
doing it.
we've been me and Grachel have been going back and forth because just schedules and school and other
Yes, we
stuff.
are like, you're in quarter three. Yeah, me too. Yeah, exam time. Yeah, exam time. Grading. Yes, documenting.
Yeah.
So it's
But
amazing. Imagine you're in Canada, I'm here, but then we are now not just linked by a love for books, but and also the state that we come from, but also now by the curriculum we teach. Like it's literally like a full circle since our friendship. What, 2007? I know you since 2007.
yeah,
That's
yeah. It's been
insane.
like a lot of time, and I think I really enjoy those conversations with you, Grachel. I feel like it's important for teachers to learn from each other and share best practices, because I think that's how you grow as teachers as well.
You should definitely start, training classes, because like you can see, you are like, that very, like, still water, that's going over the pebbles and it's not in a rush. I'm like this, the chopper 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 water.
You're
That's
that's what you say, Grachel, but I you feel I see a lot of calm and the like if I had I think if I was a parent, you'd probably see it like like different sides. And I think being on your own and gives you some advantages, but I think like just to be who you are with all the responsibilities you have, I think is commendable. But yeah, I mean, I really want to take this, and I think we can have like a 4 to 5 hour conversation on this
yes.
topic. But for now, like, thank you for this opportunity to interview you, Grachel. I really, really appreciate it. And for our listeners, stay tuned for more such interviews. In the near future, we will have more interviews with amazing people and learn more about their stories. And until then, keep
Yes, do
learning.
watch all of them, by the way. I always follow all the videos, and it's amazing to see, all the people I've known, not known, and that we are still in touch with or not. It's amazing to see the journeys and how lovingly and amazingly, Shetty, like, navigates all the conversations and he puts it across for us. It's really nice and definitely recommend.
Thank you, Grachel.